Hi guys, Mr. Wood left his computer open, so we're gonna find the lecture for tonight.
Sarah, what are you doing? What are you doing, Mr. Wood? Mr. Wood? Mr. Wood!
Yeah, what's up? Sarah, what are you doing with my laptop? What are you doing with my laptop? Why do you have the test answers open? Why are you cheating? You try to send all of the test answers to the class before the test. Wow. Miss Chai, I'm going to send her to a GLC. From San Francisco. You're gone. Get
That's
out.
crazy.
Go.
I don't think that's ever been
Sarah,
done
leave
before.
the premises immediately.
I'm very happy in this chair.
Everything has been compromised at this point. What do I do? We gotta change the test now.
What happened in the Soviet Union?
We gotta change the test now.
Were things compromised? I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Alright guys, I had to get rid of our dishonest classmate who tried to rig the system, create some shortcuts for the rest of you guys. Good thing I sent her on her way back to SoCal. Next time you see her, you can shame her when you see her in class. I'm just kidding. I'm glad you're awake. So even though I'm away, I'm still here with you in spirit through the internets. We left off talking about how the provisional government is set up after the abdication of Nicholas II, the last Romanov. All Romanovs are now gone, and so Russia is now in the process of becoming a communist state. So with the provisional government, it's kind of like a dual government system. This isn't that important. Just know that the provisional government's kind of in charge, where they have this group of constitutional Democrats that are supporting a constitutional type of republic, very liberal in their ideas. And then you have the Petrograd Soviet group. They are workers and soldiers who overthrew the Tsar in St. Petersburg, and so in their capital, in a sense, they want to take over the entire empire. So there's kind of like a dual government between these two groups. The Mensheviks are the ones that are in charge of the Petrograd Soviet, but eventually they will just step aside and accept the authority of the provisional government, and allowing, Alexander Kerensky to take over. And this is because most of the popular group is supporting the provisional government, and so at that point they're looking for radical reforms to change from the old ways of the old regime of a absolute monarchy. Okay, so Kerensky, don't need to say too much, just knowing that he is very much influenced by the Western nations. He wants to kind of replicate the type of republicanism, constitutionalism that's happening in Great Britain, France, and the US for quite some time now. And so he's going to introduce some liberal policies. Some of them include equality before the law, so you are getting rid of any social privileges, freedom of religion, freedom of speech and assembly, the rights for unions to organize together and to strike, and also reducing work days, having local officials be elected, all these types of things. The thing about Kerensky is that though he is liberal and revolutionary according to what the old regime was with the Romanovs, he was not considered revolutionary enough to the masses, and many were demanding for more radical reforms, and so he would reject outright social revolution. He didn't want to just overthrow the government like that. He didn't want to just start confiscating large land and redistributing them. There's another guy's going to come in, Lenin, who's going to do that. Okay, so at this point, anarchy is going to spread throughout Russia. There's an order that's given out by the provisional government and saying any of the old loyal military officers to the king, to the Tsar, right, we're going to find them and get rid of them. Eventually, the army is going to be like undisciplined, and the provisional government really has no power then, and peasants are kind of, all over the streets and in the countryside, and they're kind of taking matters into their own hands. A lot like the Great Fear in the French Revolution, these peasants are taking lands from landlords and often resorting to violence. And so at this point, many peasants and serfs that did not have any land at all are gaining some land by just seizing it by force, and provisional government has no control. Okay, so this is where by 1917 of October is the kind of buildup of where the Bolsheviks are going to take over. First, it comes where Lenin was exiled, right, and he's trying to find a way back into Russia. Germany's going to arrange for Lenin to be transported back through like this sealed railroad car in safety, and Lenin made an agreement with Germany and saying like if I'm successful in taking over Russia, I'm going to pull Russia out of the war because I'm promising them peace. Okay, so this is where Lenin is going to introduce his April Theses, where he's going to make several statements. One, he's going to reject all cooperation with the bourgeoisie, and he does not want to affiliate with the middle class provisional government leaders that have been in charge. And so he wants to have a socialist revolution. And so he's going to come up with these statements: all power to the Soviets, all land to the peasants, and he's going to nationalize property and have a national economy, communist economy. The provisional government wanted to seek out the Bolsheviks that Lenin was leading and repress them and stop them from trying to bring all these like radical revolts and stirring up the people, but they're largely not effective because, like I said, like the army went to anarchy, societies in anarchy, and no one's really listening to the provisional government. Okay, so then we have the Kornilov affair. This is where it's going to be the downfall of the provisional government, and many conservatives are looking to overthrow Kerensky and the provisional government because they felt that he was another, once again, not a good leader. So you have the same types of feelings of discontent. People are not getting what they want, and the fact that Kerensky is unable to suppress the Bolsheviks, right, shows that he's a weak leader. And also because of the peasants are seizing land, many of the conservatives are against these peasants just taking land from the landowners. And so the Kornilov affair actually fails. They don't actually the conservatives don't successfully overthrow the provisional government, but Kerensky has lost all credit. No one really respects him, and so the fact that Kerensky decided to stay in World War One, where Lenin promised that they would pull him out of World War One and promise peace, that was kind of like the wrong decision to make, and that's what kind of hurt Kerensky's cause. Okay, so the conservatives are dissatisfied because of his leadership, and eventually you have Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin. They are part of this group called the Politburo, which is like kind of the main elite, intellectually elite group. Eventually they're going to be part of the Communist Party, and that's going to be the main group. Okay, so the Bolshevik Revolution is called the October Revolution, and this is where the actual Bolsheviks are going to have a coup d'etat and establish a communist dictatorship. Trotsky is the leader of the Red Army, and so he's kind of like second in command after Lenin. He's the main guy. He's known to be very ruthless and very disciplined, and he would shame his shame his soldiers in front of all of them, and so that they would, abide by what he's saying and his demands. Long story short, eventually they're going to be successful in overthrowing the government, and so the Bolsheviks will create this group called the Cheka. The Cheka are the secret police, and so it's kind of the same type of theme we talked about as having autocratic rules. They just came from an absolute monarchy that would basically suppress any types of opposition. In the same way, right now with the Bolsheviks in power, this political party, they're kind of trying to do the same thing by eliminating any opponents again. And so at this point, no one's really checking the power of the Bolsheviks and the secret police, the Cheka. Lenin is going to be campaigning for the Bolshevik party, even though they're trying to overthrow it. They had a vote on it. Bolsheviks didn't win, but soon after, he's promising peace, land, bread. Three main things you need to know. Okay, peace, pulling out of the war, land, redistributing land to the peasants so it's more fair, not just having the haves with much land of landowners and then the peasants who have nothing. And bread, remember, a lot of riots are breaking out. A lot of people were complaining and rebelling and resorting to violence because of the food shortages. So this is something that people are actually looking for, and so they're going to follow him. Eventually, okay, the Bolsheviks are going to be renamed to the Communist Party, and they are going to be successful in taking over. Okay, so Lenin will have some reforms, like you said, peace, land, bread. First thing is going to be is he's going to grant land to peasants. The thing is, because the peasants have already been, taking it, like we talked about in the Great Fear, in the French Revolution, these peasants are in the countryside. Lenin doesn't really have any control over these lands, and so it seems like, oh, he's really helping them, whereas like he has no authority, but he's still doing it. And as far as what's happening with the factories, for each of the small individual factories, he's just saying, you know what, local workers are just going to be in a group, and you as a group are going to be owning it and running it together. Okay. Another thing that he introduces as one of his provisions and his reforms is the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and we talked about this during World War One. That this was the actual treaty signed by Lenin and Germany, agreeing that Russia will pull out of the war if they grant over these lands of West Russia over to Germany, but because Germany loses, they no longer get to keep that land, but they become independent states. Russia will lose 1/3 of its population and 25% of its land because of these territories, including like Poland, Ukraine, Finland, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Lenin will also move his move the government from St. Petersburg to Moscow as the main headquarters, the main capital. And from this point on, we're going to see that Russia is going to break off into civil war. Okay, and it's going to come down to a lot of the fighting that's coming throughout West Russia. These uprisings between the White and Red Army. Okay, so the Reds, obviously we know, run by Trotsky. They're the Bolsheviks, the Communist Army, and then you have the Whites, who are basically those that are loyal to the old government of the Tsar or of the provisional government. And the thing is that the Whites, in more or less, okay, they had no leader, so they're not united. Where the Reds, they're united under Trotsky. They're very much disciplined, and so they have a advantage. Okay, and then you see Russia, the Soviet Union. Okay, Russia, the Communist Party is actually instituting war communism. Let me back up though. Okay, so many peasants feared the whites; they didn't really trust them, and so then they're going to join the red side. And because of civil war that happened during this time that broke out in 1917, over 2 million people would leave Russia because of the revolution and the civil war that went on. They didn't want to risk their lives. Okay, so that's really important, and we'll get more into that. So war communism is a lot like total war, except that war communism is focused on the civil war, and the Bolsheviks are the ones that are in control and practicing this kind of type of socialist government, socialist system, where all land is now nationalized, it's owned by the state. Production and control of heavy industries is going to be held by state control. So everything that is coming down to like major manufacturing of major industries, the state's in control of that. And what happens is that the actual production levels is going to decline immensely. And the reason why is because they're only fixing their quota according to the war, not according to what the nation needs. Okay, and then you have the checkout that's going to come in, and they're going to hunt down opponents that are part of the White Army. Okay, over time we're going to see that they're going to be victorious in 1921. So the Red Army is going to win because they are organized and Trotsky's a good leader. And then we have the establishment of the Soviet Union in 1922. So it's the Union. The USSR is called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And in the end, the costs were so great. 15 million are dead. The economy is in ruins. International trade has been pretty much gone because they don't trust and want to work with other countries. Lenin believes in Russia being able to industrialize itself, fix its own economy without trading with other countries. And then you have 2 million workers that are gone, right? They're part of labor and now they're gone. So in the end, the costs were great, but we have the Soviet Union now, the world's first communist country officially. And this is going to be like a huge marker of the 20th century. And this whole Russian Revolution thing, I know it's only in like 2 lectures, but there have been a lot of FAQ questions on it. Multiple choice questions, I think it's pretty easy. They're not going to ask you super specific things, but why maybe the Bolsheviks were able to take power. Okay, all right.